guys, so today we're going to be adding some variety to our 12 pools. So this is going to be I'm not sure how many parts exactly, at least 3 that I can think of off the top of my head. But I think we're going to break it down video by video and just kind of go through the different things you can do. So in this game, we're going to do a 12 pool proxy hatch. So there's 2 timings you can send the drone at. You can either send it as soon as you put the spawning pool down, so you can avoid the probe, or you can send your drone that's when you're 14 out of 14, that last drone you make before the overlord, you can rally that across the map. And if it's rallied, it should get there just about exactly when it needs to place it down. It will get there sooner, but you can have the ability to hide a bit more what you're doing. So there's multiple ways to play this. The main way to play it is put the hatchery in the wall. It's the way Dark usually plays it, but I have seen people like Vanya put it in, or Wayne Rodata, whatever you know him by, put it actually in the natural base, but I think generally it's better in the wall. So just like regular 12 pool, you're going to start your first 6 lings. As soon as I start the 6 lings, if you didn't rally it and you sent it earlier on, you're going to go ahead and send your drone in as soon as you start those 6 lings. Or as a general rule, if you're about here, like at one of their thirds, you can start sending it at about 230 minerals. This is a good timing to go by. So what you're looking for to when you put this down, generally, best case, you full wall to where they can't get a zealot on the other side. Or if they can, you want it to be on the bottom side like this, so there's not a gap in between the hatchery and their first gateway. You can't always get the wall like this, but ideally this is what you want, just because that way the zealot can't stop you from poking at the gate. If they want to come through this way, it's going to be forever away, and you're always going to get this round if they decide to come way far out like that. So one thing to try and aim for. Now there's a couple different responses. The first thing you'll see, probably most commonly, it will throw down a forge. If that's the case, you can make anywhere from your initial 6 lings all the way up to 10 lings. And then I would just treat it as a pressure. Just keep it building for now, take a hatchery behind it, start droning after your first 6 or 10. And then if you see a good opportunity to cancel, you want to try and do that to try and get good surface area on either the zealot or the cannon where you can kill the pylon. If you see kill potential, go for it, obviously, or just enough damage to make this worth it. If not, you want to, and they do go forge, you want to make them actually build the cannons and wait until they finish it before you cancel it. Now, they can time it out to where they can make your hatchery finish before, so they can cancel the cannons if need be. If that's the case, it's usually best still to cancel, even though it's very hard for protoss to do that, though. I feel like you won't run into that too often, and even if you do, it's just a little less comfortable than you would like it to be. So that's the first case. Another thing they might do is they might throw down another gateway and a cyber. This is going to be one of the other most common responses that you're going to see. Against this, what I would do is once this hatchery hits half HP, I would pull 2 drones and start sending them across the map, because that means we want to commit to it. If they're not going to make cannons, then you can actually try and push. Now, it's not a guaranteed win by any means, but you definitely have a lot more kill potential if they go for another gate. That being said, it is definitely there are ways to kill cannon too, but I think the best way to do is background out of it, which is why I suggest that initially. But in this case, it is a second gateway. So it's core, then gate, and just making a rewall behind so we can't just cancel it and be super annoying about it, which is smart. And this is actually also the correct decision. The zealot pops on the outside just so it can delay me, or the protoss can delay me from putting DPS on this gateway. So the zealot won't be like super tucked in. I can fight it if I really want to, but it's going to be a bit harder. And the probe's also here to make it annoying, because I believe with the probe and the zealot, 2 shots instead of 3 shots to lings, if you have the probe helping the target. Yeah, like that, the probe targets properly. So good micro by the protoss. If it makes a second zealot, just trying to buy as much time as possible. And the main thing we're doing is just trying to get as much damage on this as we can, and killing the zealots, if we can get a decent trade, is going to be fine, because that's less stuff they're going to have to deal with, actually, the spine crawlers and things like that. Because really the units have to pop on the outside or the inside now, right? So there's nothing to really contest the spines. You can get a stalker, but even that's not that scary. The adepts out, there's no need to waste the lings on the gateway at this point, so we're just going to chase down the zealot and start the spines. Really, if they have an excessive amount of batteries or anything like this, you want to wait for the spines before you start trying to bust with the lings, mainly because the lings alone aren't going to give you that much DPS, and if you waste all of them before the spines and queen are done, it's not really going to do much for you, right? Now, in this case, I did start engaging slightly earlier than I wanted to, just because the stalker was in range of the spine crawler, and I didn't want to have to rebuild it and cancel it. So what I did was I just started poking with the lings a little bit early. It wasn't fast enough to where I was going to bleed too many of them out, and it also prevented me from having to cancel the spine. So I definitely should have started it a little further back, but this was a solution short term. And in this case, even if this was properly walled, which in this case it was not, we got a surround on the units. If it was properly walled, we just bring the spines forward, the queen comes forward, and the units have to run back off of creep, probably up towards the main. And then if they want to not get surrounded, the probes have to be pulled and it's a whole mess and you have to give up the low ground. And the entire time that the lings are chasing the spines or depowering the queen or depowering these pylons, right? Now there's two options. What I like to do is if I see they're giving up the low ground and just committing to a high ground defense, I will start droning my main until I get 16 drones and take a natural, while making continuous queens out of here and lings as needed. Now, if they're going to try and defend the low ground, I will full out commit, still make lings from here and just not drone, because if they're committing to the low ground, especially in a situation like this where they can't really hold, because in this case, I mean, there's nothing in the main base, right? It was one gas, this pylon's just finishing, there's no battery, no extra gates. So we know if there is ever anything, it's going to be super, super late. So at this point, we're pretty much golden. There's not much we have to worry about. And then from this point, it's just a slow death. So I thought that was something I wanted to go over. Now, there is one other situation that we could run into. Also, side note, if they make a nexus at any point with this, they're usually just dead. And if they don't probe scout, and you see with your overlord they don't probe scout, what you can do is actually build a hatchery outside of vision range. The 12 pool will probably kill them initially, but the hatchery, if you don't initially just kill them straight away, you can use that for leverage to make queens and spines still, just that way they have no notice of it. But that's only if you're sure they didn't probe scout. One other situation you're going to run into is when your drone comes to make a hatchery and you saw they went forge first, or if it's nexus first. Either of these are options. So if you run into that, if it's forge, what I would do, immediately after your first 6 lings, Rich Warren, double gas, make an overlord, and then once the gas is done, you immediately saturate and just go 12 pool Ravager. That's one of the other 12 pool follow-ups I'll be looking at later on. And one other thing you can do if they go Nexus first, you can just immediately pull the drones, and I don't think there's a way they can hold. You'll just use the drone to block any kind of wall. I mean, they're gonna have to cancel the Nexus, right? If you try and do that. Even, I mean, you can probably kill them with just the 12 pool, but if you really want to make sure there's no way of them surviving, I think if you just pull the drones with your 12 pool, because you'll have an extra, you know, 200-300 minerals in the bank just rallying lings the entire time, and they just, at most, they'll have a zealot, right? And as long as you don't mess up your micro, you should always win. So just another option if you see that they're going something weird. I'm not going to go over a whole thing on that, and I will have the 12 pool drone pool and 12 pool Ravager follow-ups later on, and potentially more follow-ups as I see fit. I don't want to do too many on the same 12 pool, but I think 3 is a good baseline, and it gives you a lot of variety based on different things that you see. And you obviously can do drone pool versus normal stuff as well, same thing with the Ravager build, and I'll have replays of that later on too. So this is just a very basic idea of how to do it, and I'll have this replay in the description as well. I'll just show the end of it really quick just to show what happened. You have to give up the low ground, try and eventually defend on the high ground. Spines are just DPSing this, and we're droning behind this, right? We're taking this gas, we're going to get speed and Ravagers, all that is needed. At one point we can just quite literally target the Nexus because there's not enough stuff anymore to defend, right? And we can recognize that. No need to play the game with the batteries and choke. But yeah, definitely one of the stronger builds, and I know Bly has a guide on this too actually, but it was in, I believe it's not in English, and I don't think there's subtitles either, so I thought this would be a cool thing for me to go over because not a lot of people have a crazy amount of experience with it. And I play it quite a fair amount. I used to more so probably about 6 months to a year ago, but I still like to play it quite often just because there's a lot of different follow-ups you can do with 12 pool. And I know a lot of cheesier Zergs such as myself enjoy just a macro 12 pool opening, so this can really keep them honest. There's so many different follow-ups, so many things they have to keep an eye out for. It's very nice to actually make them, you know, not just autopilot every time. So hopefully you enjoyed, and let me know if you have any questions. Per usual, replay will be in the description. And if you have any thing you want to ask, just feel free to DM me in Discord at any time or in my server. Just go ahead and ask. Thank you all. I hope you all have a good night.